let's go back to the sort of the purpose of AI, or the
Mhm.
purpose of like what you're trying to get out of it. The unique thing that human beings bring are two things, and they're related. The original idea, the like, why do you want to tell the story in the first place? What's important about it for you? And stories are a form of therapy. Like, what are you working through? How in telling the story are you going to see your own life in a different way and have an audience see their lives in a different way? That's the like the idea, the spark, right? And then there's like the taste, which is it good? Is the
Mhm.
story we're telling good? AI doesn't have taste,
Right.
right? AI will give you what you ask it to give you, and it gives you that answer from the whole corpus of human knowledge. And so it's basically derivative, and ultimately at its very foundation is derivative, which isn't a bad thing. It's a tool. That's great. I can't sift through the corpus of human knowledge and everything humans have ever written down to like research something or find something, but AI can.
AI isn't just for tech pros, it's for you too. Welcome to Yalla Now AI. I'm Melek, a tech executive and serial entrepreneur.
I'm Rima. I'm an author, entrepreneur, and an educator. On our show, we're going to bring you real talk, real solutions, and plenty of laughs to the AI conversation. Yalla, let's go.
Welcome back to another episode of Yalla Now AI. Rima and I are delighted to welcome Sam French to be our guest today. Welcome, Sam.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Hey, Sam.
Sam is a multi-hyphenate creative. He is an Oscar-nominated filmmaker. He's a writer, he's a director, and he's a producer. And throughout the conversation today, we're going to learn about how are the ways that Sam is using AI and what led to that place in his career journey today. So, Sam, tell us a little bit about you and your background and how you got here.
Yeah, I'm a multi-hyphenate. That's great. I love it. I came up in the film industry in New York back in the early 2000s. I was working at MTV back when that was still a thing. I was working
Mm.
television. I branched out into independent feature film production on set as a PA in the art department as a grip. Then I went to USC Film School for graduate school, which brought me to Los Angeles. And I went back then. At the time, it was because I had access to the equipment and we could use it to shoot our films, which is great. These days, you can just pick up a phone and do it. But back then, we had to go to very expensive graduate school. But after graduating from USC, I was trying to make it in the industry, and it was a little bit harder than I thought it was. I had a great thesis film, and I was a good director, but breaking into Hollywood is really tough. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that, and writing some scripts and all that stuff, and trying to, get my name out there. And that's when my life took a big turn. And,
Okay.
all of these stories about how you make it in Hollywood, or how you become a filmmaker, or a multi-hyphenate writer, director, producer, they're always different. And mine's no exception. I actually met this wonderful British diplomat and fell madly in love with her. And she was then posted to Afghanistan in 2008. And so I decided to pick up everything and go and visit her in 2008. And I ended up staying for 5 years. Um, and
That's
it's
a
because,
super cool
yeah.
relationship origin story.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're no longer together, unfortunately. But she's wonderful. But the she got me to Afghanistan. And the
Mhm.
thing about Afghanistan is that I actually fell in love with the country and the people. And, as a seeker, as a quester, someone who really wants to go seek out stories and bridge divides and find the commonalities in different cultures. I mean, it was an incredible place to try to find and try to
Mm.
do that.
Mm.
This is back in 2008 when Obama was doing the civilian surge. There's a lot of money coming into the country, but we were not doing a very good job. But the Afghan people are incredible, and they're hilarious. They're funny. There's an incredible history of poetry and theater and filmmaking, which was all destroyed by the Taliban. So people were trying to rebuild that at the time, and I came in to see if what stories I could tell. And there weren't many stories being told outside the context of war
Mm.
and the American and coalition. Um, occupation. Well, it wasn't really an occupation. We were invited there to fight the
Mhm.
Taliban. But
Mm.
um, but there was a lot of civilian stories that were being lost, and so I started a company to make films and documentaries. I never imagined myself to be a documentary filmmaker, but I was there and it was the thing to do. So I did a lot of films for the UN. We made our money, making films for the UN, for NGOs, for aid organizations, and the news media. But that allowed us to actually, have the resources to go out and tell some pretty interesting stories. And I went all over the country. It was a boot camp, a documentary boot camp. I was filming all my own stuff with my business partner, editing everything, producing everything. So really, that's where my multi-hyphenate thing started. And then in 2009, 10, we, with a colleague of mine from USC, actually, wrote a short film, a fictionalized film about these two kids coming of age in Afghanistan. The idea there was to make it about these two kids sort of out of time. There's
Mm.
this incredible ancient, it's called the Old City, called Murakami, and it's where all the blacksmiths and the jewelers and the woodworkers and like the arts and craftsmen in Afghanistan live and work. And so we set it there based around a blacksmith's son and a street urchin and how they really dreamed of playing Buzkashi, which is the national sport, which is like horse polo, but played with a dead goat carcass, which is
Oh, okay. I'm
really,
not
really
familiar
weird.
with that.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's a very ancient sport. I think the Mongols brought it over with Genghis
Mm.
Khan, and
Mm.
but it's a universal story. We wrote it to be a universal story, and it wasn't
Mm.
set in the context of war. I mean, the war, the background, it was there
Mm.
because it was in the cultural zeitgeist. Everybody knows there's a war in Afghanistan. These kids
Mhm.
are just trying to make a living and survive and build a better future. So everybody can relate to that. And
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
I'm most proud about with that film is that we partnered with our Afghan colleagues and we actually started a nonprofit to train Afghan filmmakers on the production. And I think we did some good there. I mean, the spirit of the crew and the way we made the film is just as important to me as the final film
Mm.
product was. And everybody who worked on it was incredibly proud of it. After we released it, uh, and we ended up actually getting nominated for an Academy Award for that film. So we got a
Mm.
pretty big international press and all that stuff. And then it played on the Afghanistan's national TV station. So everyone who made it, but also all the Afghans would stop me in the street and be like, thank you so much for making that film about our country and telling a story that's not just about bombs, bullets, and burqas, right? So
Yeah.
that for me reaffirmed and strengthened my intention in making films, which is
Yeah.
to tell universal stories that bind us
Mm.
and connect us together.
Mm.
I mean, filmmaking, it exists in a long tradition of storytelling that goes back a million years to when we first invented fire and we sat around a fire telling each other
Yeah.
stories, right? And
Yeah.
human beings are unique,
Mm.
skill set or our uniqueness lies in the fact that we can create this shared narrative that exists beyond our tribe to our nations to the world. And if we tell the right stories, if we tell stories that connect us, then I think we can change the world. And so that, I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to change the world, but I'm saying that I want to be in that tradition, right? So
Yeah.
after that, I came back to LA and, I tried to mesh back into Hollywood and I wrote a bunch of feature film scripts and I continued my documentary work, doing a lot of sports docs and other long form series stuff for
Yeah.
Netflix, TV, and
Mm.
ESPN and stuff like that. But um, I still am yearning and sort of seeking for those stories that I can tell that connect us together.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that's my background in a nutshell, I suppose.
So Sam, you spent 5 years in Afghanistan creating the Buzkashi Boys and With This Breath I Fly,
Mhm.
stories that really require deep cultural immersion and human trust. So
Mhm.
if AI could analyze thousands of hours of Afghan culture and
Mhm.
generate a screenplay, what would be missing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, yeah, With This Birthday Fly is a film we're still trying to release, actually. It's a documentary about two women imprisoned for so-called moral crimes.
Hmm.
One of these women was raped by her uncle and had his baby in prison because she was imprisoned for the shame of the dishonor of being assaulted. And another woman tried to run away from her husband. It's a terribly abusive marriage, and she was arrested and imprisoned as well, along with the man she really loved, she ran away with. So though that kind of story, right, is about characters, about people who are struggling with their own personal wants and desires and conflicts, and the reason I love that film so much is that these women are so courageous. It's not a film about, oh, these poor Afghan women who are oppressed. It's about these incredibly courageous women who are fighting against oppression.
Mhm.
And so, and that mirrors this larger societal thing, which is, the, women and men are bound in this tribal hierarchical structure in Afghanistan and other places like that. So I think what I love about documentary filmmaking is that you can get in the room with people and you can really get to know them, and the camera acts as a way. I find that the camera creates this sacred space where if you do it right, you're allowed to explore something really human, things that you wouldn't tell your closest family or your friends, that you feel like this is the chance to express my truth. And if you're a good documentary filmmaker, which I'm not saying I am, I'm always still learning, but and I have to say on that film, it wasn't, I did not lead the production. It was these two incredible women, Clem Malpass and Leslie Knott, who were in the prisons with these women every single day, day in, day out. And so I was supporting them during the production, and then I took over in post-production. But they were incredible at creating that space and allowing human beings to investigate their lived reality. I think what AI is very good at is it's very good at collating and sifting and honing in on things that are too overwhelming for our limited human brains.
Mhm.
So it's research, it's finding stories, it's figuring out how that story you're trying to tell relates to other stories that are out there in the world that like may have commonalities. If I had AI during that time, I'd probably use it to research moral crimes and get a real, some knowledge about how the larger issue relates to this specific place we were in. But there is no way that AI can go into the prisons and interview these women and get the very personal stories. And it's those personal stories that we build brick by brick, sentence by sentence with the human interaction that then is fed back into the AI to make the AI smarter. So I don't think that AI is going to take over that job for me. And also, I got to say, I don't want it to, and I don't think other people want it to. Like if you could create a story that has the same plot structure, right? But it's written by AI and the imagery is from AI, you can imagine it certainly would not have the same power as imagine these two specific women, Gulnaz and Farida, imprisoned and struggling to fight for their freedom. It's not the same, right? And so I think, and I got into this filmmaking process not because I want to show flashy images or get people excited about these things flashing on their screen. I got in this because I wanted to sit down with other human beings and tell a story together. And I would do that. I do that in my daily life. I'm very inquisitive, curious. I think we all are, and we all should be, about hearing other people's stories. And that's the point of being human. And so even if AI could do the film, I wouldn't want it to, because the joy is not sitting in the theater watching your film being played back for an audience. The joy of filmmaking is the daily finding, constructing, and collaborating on the story with the subjects you're filming and the people you're working with. That's the joy, the day in, day out work. And so I would like to, I want to talk about how I use AI to enhance my work, but it's important for me to say at the outset that it's it can help if it helps create the opportunity for that interaction, that space, then it's great. Otherwise, it's pointless.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I heard you say, Sam, that there's a specific kind of magic that comes from the filmmaker who lives the questions alongside of their subjects. So we're aligned there. We're aligned there.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing you said also is, shifting a little bit to how you're using the AI so that you could be more present and creating those experiences, those interactions, the brick by brick building of trust, building of relationship to allow those conversations and real life scenarios to play out in a way that then becomes a really compelling story for the audience.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, now in my work, I use it for a lot of research and to help me write treatments to see if a story is worth telling. To, I use it a lot as a brainstorming partner. I've created a lot of custom GPTs with ChatGPT. You can go in and you can train sort of a sub.
Tell us about that a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah,
Tell us about the GPTs and what are
yeah,
the assignments, what are the roles that they
yeah,
have?
yeah. So, I think let's go back to the sort of the purpose of AI or the purpose of like what you're trying to get out of it. Because one of the things, and this is a thing, something I've been thinking about a lot, is that the unique thing that human beings bring are two things, and they're related. The original idea, the like, why do you want to tell the story in the first place? What's important about it for you? And stories are a form of therapy. Like, what are you working through? How in telling the story are you going to see your own life in a different way and have an audience see their lives in a different way? That's the idea, the spark, right? And then there's like the taste, which is it good? Is the story we're telling good? AI doesn't have taste,
Right.
right? AI will give you what you ask it to give you, and it gives you that answer from the whole corpus of human knowledge. And so it's basically derivative, and ultimately at its very foundation is derivative, which isn't a bad thing. It's a tool. That's great. I can't sift through the corpus of human knowledge and everything humans have ever written down to like research something or find something but AI can. So what I've done is realizing that, right? Realizing that it's my original idea and my taste that I'm bringing to the project, right? I like AI to help me find that, right? So what I do is I create custom GPTs for different projects. And so let's say I have, for example, I'm developing a documentary about evangelicals and the environmentalism movement. And there was this thing called creation care, which evangelicals embraced 50 years ago, which is now not really a thing that much anymore. And the question of my documentary is why, and that relates to a whole bunch of different larger issues. Like, what are we doing here on Earth? Why are we, using all its resources of this place that, God created in that context? And so I created a custom GPT, which basically I've asked it to go research all of the history of creation care and the unique nature of evangelicalism in America, and then come up with, in conjunction with the AI, in the creation of this GPT, the process of creating it, I write sort of my take on that. Like, what's important about that for me? Why? How does it relate to a story I might want to tell? And I create like a document that is, I write in conjunction with ChatGPT, and then I input that into its training model. I actually am using a lot of projects now instead of custom GPTs, and we can get into the details of the difference, but I find them to be very similar, and projects allow a little bit more flexibility in terms of the corpus of knowledge that the project has access to, whereas custom GPTs are more about training the behavior of the model. But either way,
And Sam, for the benefit of our audience, which tools are you using to create these GPTs and do these projects?
Yeah, so I use primarily ChatGPT. I have also used Anthropic's Claude,
Hmm.
um, which of the two ones I think are the most creative. I think Claude's a better writer than ChatGPT. Like it's more natural in prose. And they just came out with Opus 4.5, which is incredible at writing. I mean, like
I haven't
absolutely
used
incredible.
that. I haven't
It
tried it.
just came out last week, and it's incredible. It's like it can really mimic your tone, and is much more human in the way it expresses ideas. But I find the ChatGPT interface it's a little bit easier to work with for my purposes in creating these custom GPTs or projects. The custom GPT is something you trained to express a certain behavior. Like you can be like, you're a good marketing person, help me market things, and
Hmm.
it'll be a marketing partner. But you can also do that with projects with custom instructions within the project. But the project you can add a lot more knowledge, so a lot more research. So I create these research documents, and then for this project, as I develop the treatment for the documentary that I'm making, I also add that treatment back into the project. And then what I do is when I go into doing pre-interviews where I could talk to a lot of people, again, we're sitting around a fire telling stories to each other, right? Just get on the phone and I've talked to dozens and dozens and dozens of people about faith and environmentalism. And I record all those conversations with permission, of course. And then I put the transcripts into that project with ChatGPT. So eventually ChatGPT becomes sort of an expert on the documentary I'm doing. Then I tell it to be my brainstorming partner. And I'm like, all right, how are we doing this documentary? Like, what do you think? How do you think we should structure the story?
Hmm.
What voices should we use? And the great thing about that is it can then access all of our knowledge of human history and sort of and bring that into it and present me with some options. And then usually I'm like, that doesn't sound right at all. Like it's like I'm like, that's not the documentary I want to make. That's the documentary like the average person might want to make about this subject because that's what it's good. It's giving me the average like
Hmm. Hmm.
result. As you train it better, it becomes better at doing what I more aligned with how I see the world, but it's still not going to be me. So then I say, that's not right. How about this? But that process, that's not right. How about this is the creativity process for me. It helps me understand what I want to say. So I'm not asking GPT what to say. I'm saying, what do you think we should say? That's not good. Ooh, that's good. Oh, what about that little nugget? Let's incorporate that. And it's iterative. I just have a conversation with it, then I re-add to the knowledge, its knowledge. After I rewrite the treatment, I update the treatment at its knowledge base, and it gets better and better and better. And then I can ask it questions like, hey, I remember this guy saying something about that. Can you go look at the transcript and see what he said about this subject? And it's good at that. So I don't have to go search through the transcript, and it's a lot of work, right?
Hmm.
This is
Hmm.
before we've even rolled camera, right? So it's really streamlined that process, but not just streamline, but allow me to bounce my own ideas back against myself. Um, and that's been really, really, really helpful.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. So Sam, as you're talking about how it's making things more efficient, like the faster script analysis, the
Mhm.
automated editing suggestions, predictive audience testing, some of your most powerful work came from spending long periods of time doing something with, and I'm assuming there were stalls. It was filled with unexpected moments, and slow discoveries, right? So what do we
Mhm.
lose if we
Yeah.
optimize away the inefficiency?
Yeah. There's no replacement for time and
Yeah.
spending the time. Every time I make a film, I eventually become an expert in that subject. And that's why I love filmmaking, especially doc filmmaking is just amazing because you get to go and interact with the culture. Like go down and make a doc about free divers in the Bahamas, and I now understand the freediving community. But I can ask ChatGPT, hey, tell me about the freediving community, and it'll give me an answer. And because the way our human brains work, I'll read that, but it won't cement, I won't make brain connections in there that allow me to really live that
Yeah.
experience. So, and this is the thing. That's what I worry about. I worry about younger people in the
Hmm.
world who think that is learning
Yeah.
because learning is a real lived embodied experience, right? one of my favorite novels is Neuromancer by William Gibson. Everyone should read it. It's about our present moment. It's about a guy who works with a virtual construct and to free an artificial intelligence. And a lot of the themes of that book is about like, what's the difference between an embodied consciousness and a virtual consciousness, and how is it different? We're embodied human beings, right? And so we have to interact with people and live experiences. Like you might know maybe what it looks like to go to the top of Mount Everest, but you're not going to know what it feels like until you climb it. Same thing with making a documentary or telling a narrative story. You're not going to know what it feels like until you get through the process. I always tell people, if you haven't traveled, travel, because if you I look at a lot of travel blogs and I look at these images, I'm like, that looks beautiful. I want to go to Phnom Penh, Cambodia, but I don't know what it feels like, or more importantly, how I will feel once I've gone through that experience. So before I went to Afghanistan, I was scared of Afghanistan. I was worried about who the people might be, what's going on. And it's very easy to other people this way by staying behind our screens. And you can see how social media and our screens have separated us instead of connecting us through othering, because it's easy to do that through a screen. Whereas then when I went to Afghanistan, I'm like, oh, these people are awesome. This country is so interesting. The history here is so incredible. And the stories we can tell we have lots in common. We're all human beings. But then what you don't expect is you don't expect how that experience changes you, right? Now I see the world differently. And I don't think I would see the world differently just by, generating images or, putting prompts into an AI. You really got to go live it, But that said, AI, I use it every single day, to help me with the stuff that is really enables me to then go really fully experience those things and really connect with other humans. That's how I see it. Yeah.
And I think that's so true for me, I think that's the best use case of AI. In Rima's and my origin story of this show, that was the impetus really, is how do we create the understanding and comfort level for people to utilize AI in all the ways that would allow them to show up and be more human and have more of these human interactions, because everybody is so busy and stretched and tasked with an inordinate amount of stuff. I mean, if we quantified that amount of stuff that we're doing on a daily basis and looked at it, you could see how it leads to tension in our lives in so many other areas, and I don't think there's enough of that conversation happening in terms of how to quantify some of these things, and then also create the systems in place to help people utilize AI in that way. It becomes, sometimes there's a feeling that it becomes another thing I have to learn how to do.
Yeah.
It's another thing I have to take time out of my day to learn how to do. Whereas really, if you just pick one tool, pick one problem, one area to focus on and build on that, I have found that to be a very effective way to learn and add additional solutions. And I'm sure you're using several different tools, and even your depth of experience within the one tool. You talked about projects, you talked about GPTs, you talked about references. That comes from doing the work.
Yeah. Well, it's not work, like you said. Like for me, it's fun. It's exploration.
It's curiosity. It's getting to explore your curiosity in a way with pretty instant responses that you could iterate and change as it's happening.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember the first time I opened up ChatGPT, I was scared. I'm not scared, but I'm like, is it gonna like me, or am I gonna do something wrong? And then you quickly realize you can't do anything wrong. You're like, oh, you just start typing stuff in, and then you start figuring out it's actually really fun. It's fun to talk to this weird intelligence. I think there are perils and pitfalls of going too far down the rabbit hole. I don't even want to talk about AI girlfriends or anything like that. Like I don't I don't understand some, as with anything, it can go too far. But for me, I use a lot of image generating
Mhm.
tools as well.
Which
You
tools
know,
do you use? Could you name them?
yeah, I use Midjourney mostly. I just find that its images are really interesting and more cinematic than the other tools. Although Google's VO3 is uh, incredible. And Nano Banana is great for
Nano,
marketing
yeah.
and it's great. But I also and then there's Kling and which is another good one. But I primarily use Midjourney just because I that's what I started using, and I know how it works, and I know that what like, if I put a prompt in, it's going to interpret it the prompt this way or that way. It's just my comfort level. But the reason I use these image generators is because as I'm developing this narrative feature film, I'm going to hopefully shoot next year. Um, a documentary, you can go and research like, what does this place look like? Or what is this character? You can get on the phone get on a Zoom with them and be like, oh, that's who you are. Um, with a narrative, with fictionalized films, you're living in the realm of imagination. So these image generators are great at sort of, what if it looked like this? What if it looked like that? What if it looked like this? And not just for, ideation of characters. It's not very good at like storytelling. Like it doesn't tell. If I give it a scene, it's not going to spit me back out that scene. What it is good at, or spit me back out that scene visually. Like it's not going to make my film for me. It People think that it will, right? These new tools like VO3, um, can create some incredible looking videos, right? But is that what I want to say in the world? I don't know. I think I'm a little wary of taking that as how the film should be presented or how the story should be presented. What I use it for is mood, right? I'm like, what colors are in this scene? Let's play around with the colors. Let's use some moody. Let's look at some pastel tones, or let's do some chiaroscuro, or like how do the shadows work, and like what do I want this to look like and feel like? And so I play around with it that way a lot, and just create some abstract images, which is sort of fun. That then I can translate through my experience into how I want the scene to look when I actually pick up a camera and start filming it, or have my DP pick up a camera and start filming it. It allows a conversation to happen between the humans. It's like, hey, I know you might be thinking about this in your head. I'm sort of thinking this, and I can show an image now, you know,
I love that. I love that use
which is
case.
great. Yeah. But again, I'm a little worried because like, I've had 25 years of filming things and telling stories and thinking about telling stories and working on other people's stories and seeing how they do it. I'm a little bit worried that if you don't have that experience, then you see something that VO3 creates and you're like, that looks awesome. Wow. And you don't realize, wait, but what's it missing? It's missing this thing that I know you can do, or that I don't want it to look like that. I want it to look like this. But how do you know what this is unless you've had the experience? So I really would say it's a tool to spark creativity and think about possibilities, but going out and filming and then encountering the limitations of the real world and finding creative ways to work around that, I think is the art of filmmaking. Yeah.
Well, that's the art of life,
Uh-huh.
right, Sam?
Yeah.
I mean, the things you
Yeah.
described, nothing replaces being there, seeing, feeling the feeling that we
Yeah.
receive
Yeah.
from being in a particular place or a conversation.
Mhm.
AI can never, I hope
Mhm.
we as a society never come to that expectation that AI would replace those interactions for us, but
Mhm.
only allow some of the things that have to happen so we could
Mhm.
have more of those engagements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also the other thing I've been thinking about a lot is the things that humans bring to the table, I think, are the original ideas, like the spark of an idea. What do we want to explore? We don't know what we want to say because I always say you don't know what you're going to say until you explore the idea. So yeah, even if you read a script, you do the movie and it's going to be different than the script because you're interacting with the other human beings who
Yeah.
the story changes and the actors interpret it different ways. That's the process. Then we
Yeah.
have the taste, right? Is that what we're doing good or not, right? But we also have what I think is not talked about as much, but I think is really important is ethics. I think, in the documentary world, we have this idea of documentary ethics,
Mm-hmm.
and people it's sort of fallen by the wayside as like an idea, but I think it's really important. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah. I
I
mean, Sam, to this point, because I was thinking about this when you were talking, you're
Mhm,
constantly making choices when you're making a documentary, what to include, how to
mhm.
sequence, where to end, and these choices shape truth,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if AI assisted editing becomes more sophisticated, offering suggestions on
Mhm.
what works for audiences, how do you maintain that filmmakers' moral responsibility for the truth that we're constructing? So how do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I could teach a class on documentary ethics at this point, but what it means is it means you're in charge of that truth, right? You're in charge of the truth of the characters that you're telling the story in collaboration with. You're not telling their story. You're helping them tell their story, and you're the person in charge of making sure that that story is truthful. And like for example, we made this film with This Breath I Fly about two women in prison for moral crimes. Man, we had a lot of responsibility for telling that story truthfully,
Yeah.
and we took that responsibility very
Mm-hmm.
seriously because their lives are in danger,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
for the words they speak and the actions they do. So, we want to make sure we got that right. Look, every single film, Ursula K. Le Guin had this great line in her preface to The Left Hand of Darkness, which is another great science fiction book, where she said, as writers, we are liars who tell the truth, right? And and it's true. Like every single time you look in a documentary world, you have an interview with someone saying they always do like the ums and the ahs and the likes and they go off in tangents and you cut that stuff out, right? And so you're already manipulating reality,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
You're making them say things they didn't actually say. I mean, they said, but in like a better way or a different order, or sometimes something they said on day one, you put at the end of the film, or if this is what they
Mm-hmm.
said at day 45 of shooting, you open with, it's you messing with time. But you always have to keep in mind, am I doing that in pursuit of that character's truth, or am I
Mm,
doing that for another reason? That's documentary ethics, right? And so I think with these tools, like now, in Premiere Pro, they just came out with their new software last week or 2 weeks ago. You can change what people say, not just edit what people say, but you can change what people
Oh.
say. You can, have people's lips and not just Premiere, but like lots of tools out there. You can make people's lips move to say things they didn't say. Is that something that still exists within the realm of documentary ethics? I say it depends. It depends on you as the filmmaker saying, is doing that in pursuit of that character's truth, or is it because I want to use them to tell another story, um, and betray their character? So AI doesn't know what that is. AI doesn't have any idea what that is because the only thing the AI is aligned with is, we go through this reinforcement learning process where a couple people poorly paid people in other countries say like that's a good response or that's a bad response, and that's how it's trained. That's reinforcement learning basically. And so, we need people who are trained in how stories express people's truth and to hold that up as a human value. And so when we tell these stories, we can, I think, create images to enhance documentary storytelling. We can replace backgrounds. We can, in my narrative work and maybe in my documentary work, I'd be open to these tools. Higgsfield is another company that has a lot of AI tools and they have a lot of special effects tools. But like, for example, or runway.ml. Runway is another video creation tool, an image generation tool. And they have a tool where you can like reframe a scene. So if you shoot someone like this and I could put the camera over here. Is that ethical? I mean, you're recreating basically an AI generated image, but it's based on this real image. Yeah, I mean, it depends is the
Yeah.
answer. And I think the only person who can evaluate what it depends on is a human being. So I think that's really interesting to explore.
I think that's really interesting. And I feel like this is a conversation I would like to have over a dinner
Yeah.
and continue talking about it because I have so many thoughts and personal interests in some of the things that have been highlighted. So maybe we'll save that for a kind of more intimate conversation that we could share some of with at a later time with the
Yeah.
audience.
Sounds great. Let's do it. And we also can cook,
And we can cook,
which AI
and that
can't
is one of
do.
the
Yeah.
most human experiences that we could have together.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam, you've been so interesting and generous with sharing your experience and some of the tools that you're using. Thank you for doing that.
Of course. Yeah, it's been a great conversation, and I'm really glad that you are exploring this topic in the way that you are.
Thank you. As you know, we have a little segment that we love to do with all of our guests. And here it's now your turn.
All right, I'm excited.
Okay, Rima, you want to start us off with the questions for Sam?
All right. So, Sam, tell me this. What is your favorite go-to snack?
Ah, I would have to say it's yogurt and granola now.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Whole Foods makes some great fresh granola every week. I love it. But yogurt and granola, and
Can you
it's
tell us
that,
about the yogurt? Is it
yeah,
like Icelandic? Is it like what
Yeah.
is it? What kind of
I get
yogurt?
the Whole Foods yogurt, which is, organic and it has like actual bacteria in it, which is good.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just plain vanilla yogurt.
Plain
Although it
yogurt.
does have sugar in it. I love sugar. Um, but yeah, I did that because I used to eat so much ice cream. I have such a sweet tooth, and so every night
Mm.
I would like watch a TV show and just eat ice cream, and I was like, this is not right. And then my girlfriend and we decided to try to be a little healthier, and so we're eating yogurt and granola, and we love it. It's great. We have our little bowls of yogurt and granola every night.
That
It's
sounds
really cute.
yummy.
Yeah,
I'm a fan of the yogurt as well. I think Rima, you
mhm.
are too.
Yeah. Yogurt is a great is all over the Middle East too, and also in Afghanistan. It's they have it with every meal. It's great for the digestion. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Hmm.
Next question. You know, Rima and I are all about the bag and
Hmm.
carrying our essentials around. And so we do a segment called Fetish, which means to rummage or search through. So
Hmm.
tell us, if we were to fetish in your bag, what would we find?
I love it. You used to find my passport, a change of clothes, and some food.
You would just
And
carry a passport around all the time, like
yeah,
on the regular?
yeah. I mean, it came
Wow.
from because when I was in Afghanistan, there's so many checkpoints, and so like you had to have your passport there to make sure that they realized that you were an American and they shouldn't mess with you. But it's like a go bag. I had a go bag packed. I don't have a go bag packed anymore, really. I now the most important things I have in my bag, and I have this great big bag which I
Okay.
carry around with me everywhere. So I'll carry it to tennis with my tennis rackets in it, or I'll travel with it with all my stuff, my clothes. But I always have protein bars
Yes.
Okay.
because I get really hangry
Angry.
and do not
Yeah.
want to see me when I'm hangry. And I also have my medications in there. So I have my Adderall in there. I have ADHD, which is um can be sometimes a superpower, but and I don't take the medication, every day because yeah, I don't you shouldn't. But it helps me focus. So if I'm there, I just like to have it with me so that I can take it when needed. Yeah.
That's great. And then one more question before
Hmm.
we disband. If you could tell our audience about one thing that's making your life better right now, what would that thing be?
My girlfriend.
Oh,
100%. 100%.
oh,
I love this woman. Her name is Ale. She's Peruvian, and she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. She's
That's awesome.
incredible. She is. just she's so joyful and she's so positive and affirmative. And I think in this world, I don't know, I was struggling for a while to find someone who could I don't know. I was very picky. I wanted someone who could match my energy and also, bring to my life another perspective on the world. And
Mm.
she's Peruvian, and I'm so proud of her for coming here to Los Angeles and starting a new life here. And then she just brings so much joy to my life, and another perspective on the world.
Hmm.
So I've learned a
That's
lot of
beautiful.
I've learned a lot of things from her,
Hmm.
which is, I
That
think,
that's so beautiful.
yeah, it's wonderful. So, Ali, if you're listening, you're the best.
Oh, that's so sweet. I wish upon the world their own,
I
that
was going to
everybody
say,
finds
this
their
would
own
be my
LA,
wish
right?
for everybody to find
Yes,
that person
to find your
who
person,
does
to
that
find
for
your
them.
person.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Sam, thank you so much. If our audience
Yeah.
wanted to learn more about you, where's the
Mhm.
best place for them to look?
They can go to samfrench.com, which is my personal website, or straylightstudios.com, which is my branded content company. There's some interesting work up there. So it's straylightstudios.com. Straylight, by the way, inspired by William Gibson's Neuromancer, the Villa
So,
Straylight.
so you're a
Now,
You're into the
cyberpunk
now it's an
guy.
official
sci-fi.
I'm
guy.
like,
Yeah,
cyberpunk is real for you, which
cyberpunk
is
is
great.
real.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Yeah, Gibson once said that we are living we're living in the future now. Like all the stuff that he wrote about was cyberpunk,
Yeah.
he invented the word cyberpunk. But all that stuff he talks about with body modification and the boundaries between human and other, and how we can express it, like,
Yeah.
it's all happening right now. And so he's a prophet of the new century. But yeah, the Villa Straylight is where the Tessier Ashpool clan lived on the space station Freeside, and it's where they have to go to unleash the AI upon the world. So it's straylightstudios.com.
And we
Nice.
will link those names in the show notes for
Hmm.
anybody who would like to learn more about Sam and his fascinating documentary and other creative works. Sam, thank you again.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
very much. It was a joy.
much. Thank you.